13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
I'm waiting to use this. I've been really waiting to use this opening theme.
Nice.
So, oh man. So, thank you for joining us tonight. It's Granny's Peach Tea because it's Monday night. So, thanks for joining us. We were at episode 81.
81. Maron, we're going to have to put ourselves in an old folks home, but a classy one. You know, not one of those ones that the gabagools go to, but the ones, I'm jumping the gun. But yeah, 81.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. And if you don't recognize our theme, I'd be pretty shocked if you watched the show. But it's obviously the theme for Daredevil, the Netflix series, because we got to hear it a little bit this week. So why not? It plays a pretty huge role in this week's show.
It does. This is exciting.
Love the whole little heartbeat thing at the end. Oh man, it actually makes me want to just go ahead and start rewatching the Netflix series now.
I pledge this, and you know I mean it for the most part when I say these things. I will watch all Daredevil from start to finish from Netflix before we start the new Daredevil that's coming. So I have a bit of time I'm giving myself, but I promise by the time we start that, I'll be up to date on all the old Daredevil fresh in the mind.
Nice. I think I might have to join you on that one.
Let's do it.
I think I have to join you on that one. But yeah, thanks for joining us as always. Join us on a Facebook live stream. If you're joining us on YouTube or Twitter or wherever you found your audio only podcast, we appreciate the support. And with me as always is Jason. Jason, what's up, man?
Hey, good to see you, Ed. Good to see you. I'm excited to be here. All right. So, guys, I know this is usually the time. Ed, I usually let Ed cue me in, but no. This is a second to last Granny's Gabagoo, guys. Because I'm in the 6th season of the Sopranos. I'm 3 episodes in, so I just got finished. Here's the big shit that I just got finished with. All right. So Steve Buscemi was introduced. And he played a huge role. And then he was murdered by Tony, guys. OMG, holy shit, it was huge. I kind of knew it was coming, and I might have kind of remembered that from when it was on, but maybe not. But it was amazing to watch. Adriana got killed. I did not remember this from the original run. To watch this poor woman, get murdered. Let me be clear about how I'm liking this show. As characters, I think every one of these mobsters are incredibly interesting to watch. As people, they're all garbage. And Adriana was one of those people who was not garbage and kind of caught up in shit that was above her head. And when she got it,
that was rough. That was rough.
It was really rough. So, oh man. So, but I'm going to say this. I had this fear for this show, and this fear is gone now. And it was a fear that it was going to be like Dexter, where it was good and good and good and good. And then it got really great. And then it fell off, and it should have ended seasons before. But I'm in the last season. I'm not feeling that way. I think that I can strongly say right now, no matter what happens, even if I don't like the ending, this was a strong watch from start to finish, guys. I'm really glad I took this. Thank you, Wong, for putting me on this path.
Wongers! Oh, man. It's all right. So what is your next HBO show? Because I'm genuinely dying to know this.
All right. So I gave this a lot of thought, and I am going to go the full HBO route, like we said, but my next one is not going to be any of the ones we talked about. It is going to be Boardwalk Empire because
yes,
A, Steve Buscemi, and B, 1920s, and C, what else do you fucking need from me? You got Steve Buscemi in the 1920s? I should have been on this decades ago.
Dude, Boardwalk Empire, start to finish, phenomenal show. It does not fall off at all.
Really? All right.
No, it doesn't
Excellent.
fall off at all. Absolutely love that show. And interesting choice, because do you know who's on that show?
I just know Steve Buscemi. It's all I know. Steve
Really?
Buscemi in the 20s. That's all I know.
Do you want to know? There's an actor in that show that I was introduced to on that show.
All right,
Actually, there was two, but
throw them out there.
Charlie Cox.
Get out of here.
Charlie Cox, who plays Matt Murdock, that's how I discovered him, was through
Wow.
Boardwalk Empire.
So this is truly a crossover, a divinated crossover episode because
Michael Shannon also.
oh shit! All right, so we got like some legends, some
Uh-huh.
comic book actor legends. All right,
Yeah.
even more so. This is the way Wong has put me on. So that will be the next one. We got one more Granny's Gabagoo after this, and then we're going. I'll figure out what the hell what's going to be called once we get to Boardwalk Empire.
Nice. Wow, man. I'm excited to hear your take on Boardwalk Empire, because I absolutely fucking love that show.
And by the way, Ed, I love that. Just so everyone knows that when Ed and I got on, Ed's first question to me, we haven't talked for like since last week. I've seen movies that he's put me on to that we've texted about. The one question Ed had for me was, "You got Granny's Gabagoo tonight?" So, and you were so invested in this that it makes me want to continue it.
I really am. I'm all in on this thing, and this isn't bullshit. It's not that we talked about this before we started.
No,
this is serious.
It's not a bit.
No, it's not.
But so that's it. Boardwalk Empire, not next week, but the week after. And then Ed, I'm excited to talk more about that with you because I didn't realize you were such a big fan of it.
No, I loved Boardwalk Empire. I was all about it. So, and again, I think I'm pretty sure Steve Buscemi, Steve Buscemi is like a gangster. I'm like, let's go. Come on, sign me up.
No, and he was great in The Sopranos. I mean, as like the gangster trying to go legit, who goes back and loses it and winds up like killing a bunch of people. Like his whole character arc in that season, I was like, what am I watching? This is amazing.
Wait till you see him in Boardwalk Empire.
Oh, I'm so excited.
He's so good. He's so fucking good. All right, we got a couple of quick comments to get to here, Alex. Yes, 81 episodes. It's been a good run, man. It's been a good run.
Hey.
And he's also reading our minds, because I'm pretty sure this comment came in before we said it.
I think it did.
Covering Daredevil. We'll figure out how we're going to cover that. It's definitely not going to be one episode a week. We're going to have to maybe do a season at a time or something like that.
Yeah.
So I can sit there and speculate what's going to happen next week. I mean, granted, I've watched the damn show, so I mean, it would be weird. All right, let's jump into our stuff for the week, and that starts as usual with our CW show, and it's Stargirl season 3, episode 5. But before you get into this, though, today's the anniversary of Arrow premiering on CW.
Wow. Okay, this is a milestone.
Kick the whole thing off. Yeah.
Wow. So I don't know. Do we have something for Arrow? Boss man, did you create an Arrow 15-minute intro for us? I'd love to see that. With no, Steve Faraci not watching tonight.
No, not at the moment. Faraci, you failed this city. There we go. We'll give that to him.
Oh, I love it.
So what do we got for Stargirl this week?
All right, so Stargirl, not a bad episode, not a great episode. I can go through it kind of quickly. It starts off where we're back, and this is something this season is doing, which I think works well sometimes and works not so well others, that we keep going back. Like we let a certain time elapse, and then the episode starts and we're like back to ground zero when the gambler was killed, and we kind of do this here, and I get why they did it. It was interesting. We get to see Cindy was like there lurking about looking for his laptop, and again it shines light on, did Cindy kill him? We see her take the gun and very purposely fire it off for whatever reason she had. So I thought that was interesting. I think it's interesting, again, that we're exploring the Cindy Stargirl dynamic. They kind of are becoming friends, even though that the show is really trying to paint the fact that Cindy's the bad guy, when guys, if she's the bad guy at the end of this season, I don't know. You guys tell me what I'm going to do to look stupid, because she's not. Like, and if she is, and I'm that wrong, then I don't know. Maybe I'll drink out of another. There won't be any more peach tea in my glass. I don't know. I'll get a proper pint glass or whatever. I don't know. You guys tell me. You're the audience, but there's no way that I can believe Cindy's the villain even at this point. Maybe she's being manipulated by Dragon King, as we've talked about, but who knows? Other interesting stuff here: Starman being unhinged, shooting at the ISA picture when they get into the lair where is it the ISA, the Injustice League of America? I forget.
Injustice Society of America.
Yeah, that's it. Injustice Society of America. I think the highlights are the more fun parts where you get like Mike and his friend who has the pen who grants the wishes, where they're being bullied. And they're like, I wish the bullies would be nicer. And the bullies are like, well, we are going to beat the hell out of you now. I thought that was fun. I love that Cindy stands up for them, and then they ask her to join their bootleg
little side team. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's hysterical. Courtney and Cindy have a heart-to-heart, as I said, about Cameron. There's a lot of Courtney kind of trying to be with Cameron and talking about Cameron, and also very subtly pulling away from being Stargirl. She's giving more and more access to the staff to Starman. So I don't know if it's setting up like she wants to be a normal person, if she's trying to be someone who wants to date. Maybe they're setting up like she pulls away from her secret identity and Cameron is kind of going into his. But and then Wildcat finds the computer that links Cindy, and that's how we end the episode. So I think those are the big things. Am I missing anything else?
I think a big moment in the episode was when Starman became pretty much unhinged when he saw that painting.
Yeah.
And the ISA just completely ripped the hole through, and he kind of lost it. And you could see it, mentioned the PTSD from being murdered. I mean, essentially, you can kind of understand where the guy's coming from. I mean, I'd be pretty upset if I was in his shoes too. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's not just him, it's his friends. Like, he got to come back. And I think that's what he's dealing with. He got to come back. His friends did not. Yeah. And all of these villains are getting exonerated, or, some of them are dead, but some of their kids are being exonerated. And he's going through his own journey with PTSD. And I think that's really interesting. I agree with you.
Yeah. And another one of my favorite storylines, and I can't believe that this is the case, because these are two characters I really didn't care about previously, is Sportsmaster.
Oh yeah,
and his wife, when they go to the diner, they meet up with Pat, and they're like, "Hey, listen, man, we were doing this investigation, and it's really cool to be a hero and stuff like that." And we had them we questioned them, and we had them hanging off the side of a building. And, we got the information.
Yeah,
it's like, thank you, but you're done for now. Okay, we can't condone your methods. You guys are fucking crazy. But yes, thank you for trying to do the right thing. Don't murder anyone. So
I think that's also super cool, because the first season of the show, as we talked about, was bad guys obviously being bad guys, but having a good idea, right? There was that episode of season 1 where Beth goes, wait a minute, they're just doing everything for all these social benefits? Are we on the wrong side? They had that moment. And so now, seeing these two getting to be, okay, you know what? We do believe in whatever the overall plan is. And if you want us to be this kind of good guy, then we'll be this kind of good guy. And I think, that's fantastic and a great use of those characters.
Yeah. And for me, I've said this a bunch of times, Cindy crushes it on this show. When they go to ask her to join their little club, and the way she just kind of listens to them out and just completely laughs in their face and shuts it down. And even her scenes with Courtney and with Cameron separately, she's just really good. This actress is really good. She crushes this thing.
Yeah, she does. She's really good with the facial stuff.
Yeah.
And you're right. When she shuts them down, when they ask her to join them, the two guys, and she looks at them and she's like, oh no. She has this range of emotion, these range of moments within a couple, a minute. It's great.
Yeah, no, she's excellent. But all right. yeah, so we'll see where that takes us after that, as they
Yep.
they do kind of need to like push things forward a little bit, though. I think they're
Agreed.
taking a little too much time on the death of the gambler and trying to force this misdirect, on us that nobody's buying.
Yeah.
So.
I agree. That's why I said to you, I was like, I'm always like, the first 4 episodes, I was like, yeah, so this would happen, and I told you, I was like, well, I want to get to talk to about other stuff, but it's also not a bad episode. It's not a great episode. Like it does what it has to do, and there are some good moments, but you're right, it needs to push forward. We need to see, especially because we know we don't get a full 22, like, so we're like almost halfway through, so we got to actually start following through at that. Time is a fleeting.
Mm-hmm. Great. All right, well, let's get to it. The big moment of no, actually, I don't want to even shortchange it, but this has been a big moment that a lot of people have been waiting for on our page. Yes, Alex and Rick specifically,
yes,
for different reasons. Listen, besides, I know we talk about Rick with Hawkeye on the show, but Daredevil is his main guy. So he was trying to make it on tonight, but could not. But I'm sure next time he comes on, we'll get some thoughts on this. And we got a lot of Daredevil coming up. So, let's get into it. Daredevil finally showed up on She-Hulk Attorney at Law. So he made his. This is the official Daredevil debut in the MCU.
Yep.
Because we also saw Matt Murdock in No Way Home.
And tell me, Ed, tell me. Like, I know we're jumping around, but when he gets into the factory or wherever the hell that fight takes place, and he walks in and the camera's focused on him and he's looking down, and in what is arguably, for me, not an MCU thing, but a comic book thing. I don't get the gold outfit at all, but it is comic book accurate, so who cares? But when it's looking down, he just does that, like, Daredevil slow look up, and all of a sudden he takes everyone down in the hallway. Like I very rarely go like, oh my god, I'm a fanboy, but dude, I was doing it, man.
I definitely got some goosebumps because I was like, this is it. It's actually happening.
It was so, oh my god, everything about Daredevil. And look, I've been a big person to say this is She-Hulk's show. Don't focus on all of these other casts, but I can't. It's Daredevil, and it was Charlie Cox, and he is just as good as I remember him, and as he was on those old shows. He's still got it. He fucking steals this episode. I'm sorry.
So this is definitely the best episode of the season, and
yeah, of course.
And yes, a lot of it's to do with Daredevil. But it's just also, I want to say, the dynamic with him and Jennifer and She-Hulk, all of it together is fucking flawless.
It's their chemistry is so good, and the moment of like, so I'm going to address some stuff I saw online where people were like, "Oh, well, he was so playful with She-Hulk when they were fighting or whatever," and it's like, I saw it before I saw the episode, and I was like, "All right, let me see what this is about." They first meet antagonistically in the courtroom, right? Where he pretty much just like hands her litigational ass because he's Daredevil, right?
Yeah.
And then they go out to drinks, and they are going home together that night if Daredevil doesn't get that call. That is where things are going. And Matt Murdock knows that. And so the next time he sees her, when she's She-Hulk and he's Daredevil and he knows who she is and he doesn't know who he is, of course he's still flirting with her because he's like, oh yeah, she doesn't know who I am, but like, I still want to take her home later. Like,
yeah, let me give the quick backgrounds because this is the main focus of it. So pretty much this episode opens up with this guy, LeapFrog, who's obviously like a Z-list hero who you can imagine in any world of the MCU where real heroes exist on multiple levels now. It's not just like, because like the Avengers are the A-list, and then there's others who keep dropping down, right?
You know who he reminded me of? He reminded me of one of those guys in in the Dark Knight in the beginning of the people in Batman with all of like that's who he reminded me of.
I'm not wearing hockey pads,
right?
That kind of thing.
I'm not having jet fuel come out of my ankles.
Yeah, just you can tell this guy's just got a bootleg thing going on, and he's got this weird thing going, but it's him telling Jen about it because we find out that he is trying to sue Luke Jacobson, because his suit goes on fire. And then that's what pretty much brings She-Hulk in, and then she goes ahead and she's got a case against Luke. Luke pretty much tells her, fuck off, because my work is impeccable. We're going to court. And then they go to court, and that's when you know that this is how it's going to go down. And once Luke doesn't have his lawyer, and the judge calls it out, you know what's happening. We all knew what was happening. Yep. If this was in a movie theater, Angie literally was cheering, like in our living room when it happened. Nice. She brought the movie theater experience right there, and I had an ear-to-ear grin on my face immediately because you knew this was going down. Now, when Matt comes out, though, there is one huge thing, MCU plot line, that we all kind of assumed was wrapped up, but now it's like officially official. In the whole back and forth with Jen in the courtroom, she's like, listen, about, discovery and stuff like that, and pretty much him opening up his, for Luke to open up his client list. And he's just like, listen, secret identities. Think about who he's making these suits for. You can't do that. They can harm the whole story we've heard 1,000 times. Why secret identities must exist. And he's like, the Sokovia Accords have been repealed. Which we finally got an official word on this. Yep. Finally. We all knew it.
Look, they all acted of it. We all knew it, but this is the first time it's been stated. And even I caught that. I'm usually blind to these things because, especially in an episode like this, I'm like, Daredevil. But when they dropped that, I was like, oh yeah, this makes sense. But I think that's why these shows are becoming so interesting, or have become so interesting, and become so crucial to the MCU. Is they kind of can address smaller plot things like this in this way and kind of resolve them without bringing it to the big screen. Because it's one thing to have it in this episode. It's another thing to have it in a movie like Eternals. And by the way, with everything going on these 3 hours, the Sokovia Accords have been repealed, So I think it's also a lower stakes way to address it. So I love it. And I love the fact that it was finally addressed.
And I love the fact that it was Matt Murdock.
Yeah,
that is the one who goes in and who comes from because that's the main thing I also wanted to. Well, a main thing I wanted to get to was, so we get that, and then there's, like you had mentioned, they have their conversation in the bar where you could tell there's massive flirting going on, and
they're going home with each other at the end of that night if that phone call doesn't happen 100%
immediately. And I saw probably some of the same things that you saw, people bitching online like, oh my God, Daredevil has sex. I'm like, all right, so let's bring this back to the Netflix series for a second. Everyone? How about Karen Page, Elektra? Freaking Rosario Dawson's got Claire. Like, everybody. This is Matt Murdock. This is what he does. The dude's like a pimp. It's crazy over there.
Not for nothing, but as a kid reading comic books, there was one hookup / sex / whatever you want to call it that I knew in the Marvel comic books, and that was Daredevil and Elektra. Like, that was like, I was aware at a young age that Daredevil and Elektra had sex in a way that I was not aware of other comic book characters doing it. So don't tell me that Daredevil doesn't fuck.
But what does he really do, Jason?
He gets it on with anyone, like big and green, small and blonde. It doesn't matter to him.
No, not at all. So let's enough with that crap that was being thrown out there too. So another interesting thing though is that they have their thing. Then LeapFrog. Then he gets the call that something's going down. We find out what is going down, and it's like this LeapFrog dude who got crushed in the case goes ahead and kidnaps Luke, and Daredevil's in pursuit now. He gets word on that because I'm sure Luke called him, and he's in pursuit. And then She-Hulk gets the call.
And what I love is that when She-Hulk takes the call from LeapFrog, she only takes it as She-Hulk because Matt Murdock as Daredevil gives her this pep talk about like, well, look, you can be both. You can be, because he's giving her his experience. You can be the law and a superhero. You can fill both roles. And there is that moment where she gets the LeapFrog call, and she's like, well, you're my client. I'll meet you here. And he's like, I'm being pursued. And she's like, okay, I'll meet you. And she's like, she hulks up. So I love
suits
that
up.
she does. She suits up. And I love that it's Daredevil that puts her on that track to go head to head with Daredevil in this fight.
Yeah, and he uses pretty much a line that he had used, in the Netflix series, that like, as a lawyer, he'll fight for justice like that. When the system fails you, then it's time to suit up and to really like get down. And that's what she learns from him. So they pretty much go ahead and she finds out that Daredevil's the one who's in pursuit, and then they square off. She-Hulk pretty much tells him to get lost, LeapFrog to get lost. Then we get Daredevil versus She-Hulk pretty much there, and they go ahead and they're throwing down. She-Hulk's pretty much thinking she's going to squash this guy. She doesn't know who she's fucking with over here. And super experienced. And that's another thing that I think we get a Matt Murdock here who's been doing this for a while.
Yes.
You know, so he's, to me, and through various things in this episode, the Marvel Studios needs to get their story straight with this, because to me, in your actions, this is the same character from the Netflix series. This is not a reboot of him at all.
Yeah.
I'm not buying that now.
Here's my theory about this. I think it's going to be the same character in the sense that he's had years. We don't have to go through the whole origin again. This is what it is. I think it's a reboot in the sense that when the MCU wants to retinker things from there, they're going to do it. So, like, we did see a different Kingpin, right? We've seen a more stronger Kingpin and a less, like, he was more kind of super strong when we saw him in the MCU in his brief thing, as opposed to just a regular businessman in the Daredevil. I think we might see a revisit of Stick, or revisit of Elektra, or a revisit of the Defenders. But I think so. So what I think is the character is going to be the same, but the characters they used might be rebooted.
See, I'm gonna say that I think that they're going to use the term reboot as just restart, as in, not like if I reboot a computer, it is not like a brand new computer. Right. It's just you're turning it back on again. That's kind of the term I'm taking this as.
Okay,
so they're not
fair
remaking.
enough.
I do think that the Netflix series are canon in the MCU. That's what I'm taking this as, because number one, the thing you mentioned, I know we'll tie back to with the hallway scene. Because number one, you had the nod to the hallway scene. Number two, this dude's wearing the same freaking suit exactly, with different colors, because he was made a couple of suits by Luke Jacobson. Number three, he mentions pretty much everything back in New York and pro bono and does all of that. And I love the fact that he drops into Jen that, yes, once in a while he has to take the big cases. You got to pay the bills at some point, which was smart, because that covers those questions of how the hell is Nelson and Murdock even going. So you get that. And also, they dropped the damn Netflix theme that we opened up with in the middle of a conversation. So I was like, you got it? You got it? Wait. All right, now you got it this time? I don't know how it's not. You don't use the Netflix theme to me if that's not it.
I agree.
So that's what I'm getting. And I think that those who are saying that this isn't the same Matt Murdock, it's just that this guy's a bit more comfortable in his skin at this point than the guy that we met. Because when we met him, it was Daredevil Begins, essentially. Yeah. So I think he's more experienced now.
Yeah, this is Matt Murdock doing it for a couple of years.
Yeah, and he states that a couple of times to Jen, because he, in some scenes, like after their little battle and stuff, and she unmasks him and everything like that, which should happen easily, because, I mean, she's fucking She-Hulk, and yes, she's 1,000 times stronger than him, so that should happen.
And it is a cool scene where she
cool scene.
Pretty much unfairly gives him the clap, something he couldn't possibly, she claps and it throws him off and something he couldn't possibly defend against. And she picks him up and pulls his mask off, and she's just like, "Oh shit, Matt, that's you," and puts him right down and gives him the mask right. Like that's an awesome scene when she realizes it.
Yeah, because listen, in a toe-to-toe fight, I mean, that's crazy. So. But he does hold his own for someone like we can talk about Batman fighting so overpowered people, superpowered people. It's just, he can go toe to toe, and that's already enough to not get squashed by her. But they're so they have that moment, and there is a lot of he takes her under his wing, because they're going to do that raid into the warehouse to go rescue Luke, and he says like, listen. He and by the way, I love the fact that they give you a brief synopsis just in case you didn't watch the series of his powers. All right, there's about 10 people in the hallway. There's this person over there, and she's just like in total disbelief of this.
How do you know that? I can hear their heartbeat. Can you hear mine? Oh, I can hear yours, and it's fluttering because she's attracted to
Yep. And it was just like, so he could just go back and forth like, I'm about to go bust these guys' asses in the warehouse, and by the way, I'm still going to make sure I'm going ahead and keeping that game going while we're here. And I love the fact that they go after that, and he's like, listen, I'm going to go. He breaks down the time. It's going to take me about, X amount of time to take out each goon and everything. And she's like, I'm just going to go in and do my thing. He's like, you don't have a thing. You don't do this. I do this. This is my thing. And she's learning how to be a hero in a way in this episode, mixed in with all the other shit that's going on.
And I love the fact that like he breaks it down and she's like, okay, I'll follow you. And then we get the hallway scene, right? Which is where we're going here, which is phenomenal. He looks up and the camera, and then he just takes everyone down the hallway. And then you see the next round of goons come, and she just falls from the ceiling on them.
Like She-Hulk smash.
Yep, She-Hulk smash takes them all down at once. It was it was a great way to sort of build the tension, to give the nod to Daredevil, but then to deflate it like, no, still She-Hulk show.
And I think that was smart because it is a She-Hulk show, and I think it was a funny way to troll the audience again, because we talked about this whole season. They're experts at trolling the audience with this, and you gave us our Daredevil fight scene in a hallway battle, and then you kind of just trolled us after that.
But we still got it, and
it was awesome.
It was amazing. And I gotta ask you this, and I asked you this off camera, or I told you I would my question about this off camera, but you're more of a comic book guy about stuff like this. Why the yellow suit? Like,
all right, so that gets joked around with. It's ketchup and mustard in this whole thing. So apparently it had more to do with the colors of pages in the time when Daredevil was created.
Okay.
Actually, it's funny that we have this. So if you look on our background, see there gray Hulk in the middle? So the Hulk was kind of gray and various different colors, and they made him green eventually, because they couldn't match the color all the time. So a lot of red on Daredevil was going to be a printing problem at one point. And then that's why they gave him these goofy colors. And then when they didn't have to do that, they realized this is goofy. We're going to give him a better suit now.
Okay, awesome.
So and it is great that we have the two suits that we're referring to right in our background. Right above Jason is where you'll see the Daredevil comics accurate yellow and red suit. Yes. So that's pretty much the story behind that.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. Because I think that the yellow suit is a perfect choice for this show, She-Hulk. Yes. It's absolutely perfect. But I was just curious, because I was talking with my friend Walter, who's been on the show, and he was like, yeah, what a great color, light yellow, to be jumping around the night sky of Manhattan. I'm like, yeah, good point.
Yeah, now and Rick made a point. Me and him were talking about that's true. In reality, Daredevil suit should probably be black.
Yeah,
that should have been the suit, but whatever. The dark red is cool. It works more vibrant for comic books and stuff like that.
No, for sure,
it's a great suit,
and it makes sense with the dark red because he's a Daredevil. He's the devil, right?
Yes,
that's the thing. His name is Daredevil. We think, oh, evil Knievel, but he's a very Christian character who is embodying the devil, literally. So the fact that it's red makes perfect sense.
And it also goes into what we've always talked about with Marvel characters, about how they're more embattled than what we usually would see. Even though DC characters have come that way now, but for Marvel characters, that was their trademark. They always had to make Matt Murdock a Catholic guy and everything like that, a church-going guy, but he's Daredevil is, that's a layer that's in there that, of course is going to make it more complex. So they go ahead and they and Shio, by the way, also Jen mentions that to him. Oh, wait a second, I thought the guy dressed as the devil would be the fucking bad guy.
Right.
And he's like, fair point. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, spoiler alert, they save Luke. She forgives Jen. He forgives Jen for it. They're all good now. He's going to make the suit for the gala and continue making their suits. And then Matt and her hook up. And yeah,
Wonderful.
so you knew that it was coming.
You knew it was coming, and I loved the way it happened because Matt was like, well, she's like, well, are you going to be in LA for long, or going to be here for long? And he's like, well, just tomorrow, but maybe next time I can get dinner. We can get dinner, and she's like, well, we could just skip that. Fucking smash cut to them smash and cutting.
Yeah, she's taking off the Daredevil suit and stuff like that, and they go back to Jen's apartment. Cut to the next morning, and we get Daredevil doing the walk of shame the next morning. Walking past a woman with a dog and stuff. It's absolutely hilarious.
And what made it for me was the fact that he's in full Daredevil regalia, except the boots are off, and he's walking barefoot in the grass. I don't know why that little detail made it so much more funny, but it did.
It was ridiculous, but it works though. For this show, it works. I'm sorry,
great. It's great.
I think it was great, and so you get Jen's assistant goes to her apartment and was like, "Listen, I just saw some dude doing a walk of shame in a fucking devil costume," and was like, "Oh, wait a second, he's walking from here." Okay, and I'll tell you one thing, man. Jen seemed like she was pretty smitten with Matt Murdock, man.
Oh, they had a good time. They both had a good time.
So
is he in the next episode? Do we know?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
But my guess is that it wouldn't be shocking to see them cross paths at some point
in
the MCU again. They
had great chemistry. Like the time they had together on camera, those actors had fucking great chemistry together.
Yeah, no, they perfectly, no pun intended, they nailed
it.
Yeah. So there's a funny thing where Jen goes in and breaks the fourth wall, and she's like, "Hey, what are you guys still doing here talking to the camera? This should be over. What the hell is this scene?" And they're going to the gala. And she name drops somebody pretty big. She name drops Red Hulk.
She does.
Pretty blatantly.
She name drops Red Hulk. And within scenes of each other, her assistant comes out and does the Wolverine claws with her, so they're dropping hints all over the place. So, but do you think her name dropping the Red Hulk means that we're going to get a Red Hulk? Because that's what the internet's a buzz about right now.
Yeah, there's a big rumor going around that Harrison Ford is going to end up picking up the mantle of General Ross. And that would be pretty interesting. And there's Thunderbolts, and Red Hulk is a big member of Thunderbolts. So we know the roster was announced, but we've said on this show multiple times we're not buying that that's the entire roster whatsoever.
I remember when the roster was announced of people who were going to be in Far From Home, Spider-Man Far From Home. Yeah. And then I saw the movie, and it was exactly everyone I thought was going to be that I was told wasn't. So,
so I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that they name dropped Red Hulk.
Yeah, I don't either.
So that leads to the gala where, if you remember, Jen was she was nominated for the Female Lawyer of the Year. Oddly enough, she wins, and so does every other nominee win. And it's just really bizarre. So they're all going through their speeches, and Jen's having a heartfelt one before Intelligentsia takes over the screen behind her and pretty much is saying to everyone, she's not worth your time. She's not who she thinks she is. And they drop a video of her hooking up with Josh, a couple episodes ago. And it pretty much was to push her over the edge. She rages out and breaks the friggin' monitors and stuff. And she goes and pretty much has one of these dudes in hand. Yep. And security kind of forces her to drop it. And then end of episode. So we know it's like Hulk King is involved in this. Intelligentsia is pushing her. So we're heading towards like the big showdown in the finale, which is what we were all expecting anyway, is that it's coming to a head now. Now, I did see earlier today there was a mini trailer for the finale dropped, and it appears Hulk is back, and it looks like he's fighting Abomination.
Oh,
so
that's weird.
They might be getting their rematch somehow, some way, which might lead credence, though, is to the theories that were being thrown around, and potentially Abomination might be involved with Intelligentsia.
I really hope not. I mean, if it is, it is, but I really hope not, because we have, and here's why I hope not, because we have not been focusing on Abomination. We've been focusing on Blonsky for multiple episodes. And if it turns out that was all a fake, especially after that like whole episode where they were at his retreat, if it was all a deep fake and he's been a part of it the whole time, I'm not going to be happy with that reveal because they put too much work into the character, not convincing us that the character's not involved, but convincing the character shouldn't be involved. And it just wouldn't make sense that this Blonsky would not make sense to me being part of Intelligentsia and being part of who fucks over She-Hulk. Just wouldn't.
Unless Intelligentsia activates him into Abomination somehow.
Well, that's a different story. If they
like a mind control thing or something like that.
If they activate him and he's just a pawn and it is nothing like that, that's another thing. That's different. But but if he that's them using him. That's not him being in league with them. That's them victimizing him, and that I can see, and that's a different story. I just don't want to see the character of Blonsky / Abomination willingly participate because it goes against everything they've set up in this season with him.
Yeah, I don't know. They pretty much don't really have any context to the in the trailer. So I mean, we'll see on Thursday what we're getting here. I mean, this was definitely the best episode of the season
for sure.
Great seeing Daredevil. It's not just because Daredevil showed up. It's because just overall, you got so much in this thing, and now you've set up the finale, which is kind of what we wanted things to kick in gear a little bit. So
right. Exactly. And I think it did it with it gave us a real threat, but not the threat we expected, because the threat was her not being able to control her anger, right? Which goes back to the first episode, right? Yeah. How did she say she could control She-Hulk? Well, women are used to being catcalled. We're used to being treated differently. And then now we're in the second to last episode, and how is she shamed? Because she had sex with people? They're literally just it's literally the kind of shit the incels do on Twitter to actresses who play roles they don't like. Oh, let's shame them by taping them having sex and showing it. Let's show that they're not this or that. It's like she didn't do anything wrong. This is just her private moments being taken and put on put on
public
blast.
Display,
in public display. And the fact that she reacts that way, it's kind of like, well, of course she would. That's terrible, but she's also a Hulk, so it brings in this whole new layer. So it's super interesting, and I'm really, really interested to see where it goes.
Can I also want to drop something else too, as we can put maybe another halo on Matt Murdock?
Sure.
What have me and you been talking about? We've wanted for Jen Walters.
Yes, you're right. Someone to just fucking be into Jen Walters and not She-Hulk. And you know what, Matt Murdock, he might want to have sex with She-Hulk, but he also wants to have sex with Jen Walters. And yes, thank you, Matt Murdock.
Matt Murdock, the hero that we've been waiting for, literally and also figuratively, that we didn't know this entire time.
Yes. Thank you for being the only person on this show who doesn't pretend that Jen Walters not being She-Hulk is somehow some fucking disgusting ogre that should be shot in the head or something, like everyone else does when they go, "Oh, you're not the She-Hulk now, Jen Walters."
Yeah. And before we move on, there's one more thing though. That dude, right? That weird dude who's the client who has the She-Hulk fetish, who buys the Wakandan war spear in this. Intelligentsia?
Yeah,
Intelligentsia, yeah, for sure. I think
100%, yeah.
And apparently Wakanda's pissed at him too, so I wouldn't be shocked if there was some sort of pop-in from Wakanda, maybe in the last episode, to kind of come get their shit back from him.
I would love to see the Dora
Milaje just show up and be like, "Yo, dude, let's go. I don't care how many receipts you got. Run your shit."
Because he does say that I have all the receipts, and it's like, yeah, you stole it, motherfucker. You didn't steal it. It was stolen and sold to you. It's still stolen.
Yeah, exactly. He might have bought it from a Ulysses Claw, which, by the way, Intelligentsia.
Yes.
And I didn't pre-think that. That literally just came out right now, connecting the dots for the book. So maybe that's what we're getting.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, this is a Marvel show, and I think for as much as Marvel has flaunted in a lot of people's faces like, this is different. This is different. I think there's going to have to be something important that moves us forward for them to be able to reconcile it with the man babies who hate the show, who are still fans of the MCU and still need to watch this shit because they are putting important stuff out there.
Yeah. And you got your debut of Daredevil.
You did.
Officially canon now. And
it was great.
It was phenomenal. Don't care what you think of it. If you did the homework and you read some comics and you watched the show, this is definitely justice for Matt Murdock. Daredevil has been saved.
I can't wait. I can't wait to his new show.
Yeah, me neither. All right. So speaking of the MCU and changing things up from them, we got Werewolf by Night this past Friday, a Marvel Studios special presentation of a first for them because they've done one-shots and things like that. Now we get their first special presentation here, which kind of seems it's smaller, contained one-off stories, but you know that there's going to be ramifications for the MCU moving forward. Now, this was in black and white because to me, like from the trailer, mostly, besides the Bloodstone there.
Well, and the last
at the end, the end. So I'm just saying, like from the opening credits to, by the way, the Marvel Studios introduction and the way that they did that for this, it gave me I was genuinely giddy while I was watching this. I was just like, oh yes, this is it. It is totally an ode to the old Frankenstein, Universal monsters, Dracula, sure. Werewolf and werewolves and stuff like that. And I had a hell of a time with this thing. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. And while being fun, it was also one of the most violent, gory things we've gotten in the MCU to date. And I think that's one of the reasons it was probably mostly in black and white.
Oh, I 100% think it is the reason it was in black and white, because Disney and the MCU would not put out this movie with the violence and the blood and the gore that it had if it was not in black and white.
Yeah, we're getting people getting stabbed, blood flying all over the place on the camera.
And by the way, I was here for all that violence in an MCU movie. I was here for all of it, every single blood stroke. And I actually want to point out that there was the Bloodstone was a moment of color, as was at the end. But as we're talking about it, when Man-Thing, or Ted, as we now need to call him, when he crushes that guy's head, there's a yellow light that comes from there. So Man-Thing also generates something of color. And I'm only bringing this up as I'm thinking about it because I've read a bunch of articles saying Man-Thing is going to be more important in the MCU than we see at this point. And so him being something of color, the Bloodstone being something of color, and then him being colorized at the end, I think that's all important.
No, I agree. This is definitely number one, it's for me and you specifically, a very different Man-Thing than what we got a week ago.
Oh, yes. That was Man-Thing. This is Ted.
Yeah.
Very different.
Tremendously different characters. This guy has become, people love him. He's become a lovable, Groot or something like that, or something that we've gotten this weekend.
I get it. Look, I was watching it, and I have to admit, so I started watching it Friday night. I went out to do karaoke by myself on Friday. I got home, and I was like, you know what? I gotta watch Werewolf by Night, but I'm not really in the mood. But let me see. And I was watching it, and I was like, all right, I'm not in the mood. Let me stop this. But I did get to the Man-Thing stuff, and then I restarted it the next day, and I got to the Man-Thing stuff, and at the same point, when Man-Thing makes a run for it, or Ted makes a run for it, when Jack frees him, I had the same thought. I was twice when I rewatched it. I was like, wow, what a dick friend, man. He just leaves his friend there to fucking suffer. But at the end, when he comes back to wreck house on everyone, I was like, oh no, he's not a dick friend, man. He just needed a moment to recover. He's about to wreck house. And he does.
Yeah, no, he totally kicks a hell of a lot of ass and murders some fucking people.
I love it.
Yeah, and it's it was very refreshing after what we watched last week, just for
sure.
the characters specifically.
For sure.
Looks very comics accurate on top of that as well.
The red eyes and just they even got like he had facial expressions.
Yep.
Which was amazing. Like the CGI on him is amazing.
Much better than the dude in the suit from last week.
Yes. Yes, much better.
So I just thought that was an interesting journey for me and you, who just watched, and probably not many others who watched the sci-fi original from 2005 just last week, and then we get to be reintroduced for real to him in this thing. But yeah, no, I remember seeing things that were saying about how violent this thing is, and it is not in like a crazy over the top way, but like it makes sense. But it's just shocking because it's the MCU.
Yes, 100%.
That's what the shock is here. And in the beginning, again, they set the tone with the Marvel Studios logo and the way that they add horror to it. And they're like, hey, listen, they show the Avengers. And they're like, hey, these are the world of heroes. But then there's a much darker side to the MCU. And it sets the tone perfectly for this.
Yeah.
It just... It works. It just really freaking works for me on every level.
I agree, and just the setup of this, it looked like, so the credits looked like a 1930s Universal horror monster movie. They set it up like that. It's black and white, and this whole setup of, okay, so this monster hunter is dead, and you've all proven yourselves to be the best monster hunters. There's a monster out there, and one of you is going to kill it. I mean, it's just such a great setup. It's a classic setup. I love when they were introducing the characters, where like you had 20 kills, you had 40 kills, and like the really impressive guy had like 60 kills, and yeah, that Jack has 120 kills.
Yeah. The most unassuming one.
He is so unassuming through the whole thing, because he gets attacked a bunch of times through the whole thing, and he literally just avoids, and gets other people to fight for him.
Yeah, and then we find out, of course, because of the title, somebody's a werewolf.
Of course. And
they pretty much will use the Bloodstone to trigger him to become the werewolf, and then we see him fucking wreck shop as the werewolf. And him and Man-Thing just kicking ass together.
It's fantastic, and I love the moments, the character moments too, where they let everyone out. You have like the BB from Frasier. I don't know if you watched Frasier, but like the woman who's in charge of this, I'm pretty sure, is the actress who played BB in Frasier, who was his agent, and she sets this all up. But I love that she's like, okay, well, the person standing gets to win. So even before we even get this werewolf person, we get all of these monster hunters immediately trying to kill each other before they go after Man-Thing, which I love.
Oh yeah, they weren't going to team up for that because they all want the damn Bloodstone.
And it's like, so they all immediately try to kill each other, so that's cool. And then eventually they where the Jack frees Man-Thing with what's her face, Sophie, is that her name? I forget her name.
Let me double check that. It's
but it's pretty much the daughter of the person who put this together, and it's his only ally. And her whole thing is, I hate them, and I have nothing against monsters. I just want the fucking Bloodstone.
Elsa Bloodstone.
And so, if only I could think of the last name of the Bloodstone line. But so Elsa Bloodstone's whole thing is, I'll help you free Ted, but I want the Bloodstone. So they get into it together. You see her wreck shop on a bunch of people. Like she kills she kills one of the most dangerous ones on her own. Where like he comes at her like with his arm, and she cuts his hand off, and then takes his hand, which has a crossbow on it, and shoots him in the neck, and then grabs him as the German guy is coming in and pulls him into a crypt where she holds his mouth and suffocates him to death. That's one of the most brutal things I've ever seen in an MCU movie.
Again, things where if you're an MCU fan, you haven't seen this yet, you really need to see this shit, because it's wild that they went there with a lot of this.
It's so crazy.
And I guess now seeing it, I understand why, because Moon Knight in the comics has a connection to Werewolf by Night. You don't need to have. You need to let the story have its own thing, and also Blade. And even though we're waiting for the big introduction of Blade, and we've seen the stories that they might be having some issues with the Blade script at the moment, so hopefully they straighten that out. But I'm actually glad they didn't have either one of them in this, because this needed to be its own thing for now. I'm not saying down the line we don't see something else, because there's already been talk, of course, if this makes sense, we'll do another presentation of Werewolf by Night. I would love this to become a thing where we get this every October.
Me too.
I was actually kind of a little bummed, and I told Angie this when I was watching it yesterday, I'm kind of shocked they didn't release this like the week of Halloween.
Oh, yeah, like save it a bit later, you're right.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like,
they might not have thought it would have worked. Maybe they were testing it.
Yeah, no, I do. Well, yeah, I think they went as far as to release it in October. Now, I don't know if they have other stuff releasing on Disney Plus and that's it. And plus, I'm sure this was a risk, because like Werewolf by Night, I mean, in the case of Marvel Comics titles, another Z-list.
Well, I never even heard of it before this, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something that many. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if Rick had an issue or two. But
I wouldn't either.
No, he's the only person I know that would. And if he does, Rick, if you do have it, please take a picture of it and post it on our Facebook page.
Please.
That would be great. And I would love to be proved correct on this. But it's, again, the phase 4, this is them taking all these chances. And they're working. They're just working constantly.
I agree. I thought like this was so much fun, and just this was a character-driven monster movie that looked good, with actual real CGI behind it. Like, it was a monster movie where Man-Thing looks perfect in and out of black and white. You know what I mean? Like, but it was also a 20s, 30s monster movie aesthetic. Like, I felt watching it. I felt like I feel when I watch Tarantino movies like Kill Bill. It's like, wow, it's like watching the original source material, but also kind of better because the aesthetics are better and there's more money into it. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, exactly. It's a little more clean.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly how I felt about this. I love that character of Jack. I love the character of Elsa. I loved all of the monster hunters. And look, when you get to the end, and I think this is the last 20 minutes of the movie, where they trap Jack and Elsa in the cage, because they find out, like, and this is the fun part, right? Like, it's like Jack is working to free Man-Thing / Ted with Elsa. I don't know why he does this, but he stupidly goes to grab the Bloodstone and it repels him, and that kind of reveals to everyone there that he is a monster. And so they take him prisoner, put him in a cage with Elsa, and then they're about to make him a werewolf. He does this cool thing, which I love this, where he's like, he starts smelling her and he's like, look into my eyes. I'm smelling you. I'm looking into my eyes. And she's like, what are you doing? And he's like, once this worked and stopped me from killing someone. I love that.
I thought that was genius. And the fact that he drops, this worked this one time. I'm like, oh, wow.
But like in that moment, it's like, well, it worked once. What are we gonna do? Nothing. It's like, we gotta do something.
If that, I'm gonna rip you to shreds in a couple of seconds.
And I love the fact that, of course, it's gonna work, but I love the fact that it works. And I love when two things I love when he gets out as the werewolf. One, the reveal of what he looks like, which is pretty much just an expensive, like, werewolf from the Universal Studios movies, right? Like, he looks like that werewolf, except he can do more things and go growl. I'm in I've got cotton on me. Like, he looks like a werewolf, but in that aesthetic. And the second thing is just how much he kicks ass. He fucking destroys a whole room of goons.
Yeah. I'm really curious to see what they use him and Ted in the future with. Like, I'm very curious to see, because I got to imagine it's going to be with something.
It's got to be.
It's going to be with something, but I'm still sticking to my original thing. I hope this is like an every October thing, that we get a Werewolf by Night special presentation, and that would be it.
I hope so. We might. I'm going to say that we might see one or both of them in a Blade movie, or something like that. Like I think this sets up the MCU monster aspect, right? Like Doctor Strange set us on our magic course, and now we can do magic in the MCU. This sets up the monster course. We know Blade's coming, so I think they're going to be a part of the Blade universe. I don't know. No jokes. All kidding aside, maybe we do get a Mephisto, right? Because that goes into
we go.
No, but it goes into like the demons and the demonology and that. I mean, there is this whole part of the Marvel universe in the comics that has like, Blade and Werewolf by Night and Mephisto, and I'm sure I'm blanking on other things, but there is this whole monster thing that we don't explore. So maybe that's what this sets up.
Or even a Moon Knight season 2. I mean, there's a connection with that too. So you could go that route. Yeah, it's I don't know. I was pleasantly. I mean, we said we were excited about it beforehand, and this delivered on everything that I wanted it to be, and that's why I was like pleasantly surprised. Plus the aspect of just watching that fucking Man Thing last week, and then getting like this almost cuddly version of Man Thing.
I loved it. I love Ted so much. I loved him. I love him so much because you watch him, even with the Bloodstone in him, destroy things. Right? With the Bloodstone, he grabs that guy who was giving everyone trouble and fucking disintegrates him.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get the Bloodstone out of him and he runs away. And then he comes back, wrecks house, and then saves Jack. And this is the only thing I would say that I have. It's not an issue, it's a critique. But I feel that it going from black and white to color at the end, the only reason it does that is because, as we said before, it has to be black and white for the blood. But we also want to show the audience that Man Thing looks awesome in color.
Yeah.
And because it doesn't serve the story or what they're going for with the story at all, I kind of had a problem with it.
Okay.
But it's a small thing, and I can get over it because he does look awesome with in color. But that's only my small nitpick with it.
I would look at it a little bit like this, kind of like how Kill Bill. Remember when Tarantino admitted that once she fights a crazy 88, and they had to go to get all that blood, and it had to go black and white. I'll take it like that.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, no, I mean that's pretty much it. Like here's the thing, I don't mind that it had to be black and white for the blood. I just felt it becoming color was gratuitous at the end without a narrative reason. And I think the MCU could have given it a narrative reason. It just didn't. But
That's fair.
But also, what am I expecting from a 54-minute special? Like, I'm not really saying that it affected anything about my takeaway from this, but it is a critique.
All right. And that's totally fair though. All right. So that pretty much does it for us this week. Thanks for joining us. If you like what you heard today and you're joining us on the Facebook live stream, join Granny's Peach Cheese Facebook group, and we share trailers and other stories and news that doesn't quite make the show. There's actually been a few clips that we didn't get too much from New York Comic Con this weekend, but two big things we did get was we have release dates for season 4 of Titans, which will be November 3rd, and then Doom Patrol season 4, which releases on this guy's birthday.
Wow.
So I'm actually excited about that.
Nice.
But pretty pumped to be getting that. And there's a couple of day drop trailers and some scenes. So if you get a chance, you can check out our Facebook page because I did pop those on there. If you're also Pop Culture Pros, don't forget to go ahead and join the Pop Culture Pros group. Check out all the cool shows that we got on the network. If you're checking us out on YouTube, hit subscribe. Also, check out everything, our past episodes, other shows. We got baseball and football and James Bond and Disney and everything else you can think of. So check that out. And on Twitter, follow at Pop Culture Pros as well, wherever you found your audio-only podcast. We will be back next week. We'll be talking about the season finale of She-Hulk, the next episode of Stargirl, and we will figure out what our movie of the week will be because we are leading up to Black Adam in a couple of weeks. So we are. It's right around the corner.
It is right around the corner. But we did all those. We did the DC movie, right? We did.
DCU's done, man. So I know we were talking. We'll figure out offline because
All right.
we got to make sure we can see these things because we've kind of gotten a little scary with some of that lately. But we will be probably covering some DC Black Adam Justice Society content leading up into it, so it gets you kind of in the mood, get the flavor for Black Adam going. So you can come check us out for that. Do you have you got a return date for Double O Deep Dive? Or
I gotta talk to Ginny. I gotta talk to
Okay.
Ginny. They're in Tech Week now, so I'll talk to her and I will know more at the end of this week.
All right. So stay tuned for that. And if you're into, like I said, we had Yankees, the Empire 161 show. We dropped a new episode right before this, so if you're getting hyped up for the Yankee playoff run, and go ahead and check that out, because we had a whole little preview episode on that. So we'll see you next week. All right. Peace.
All right. Later.